Hi, I'm Safi.
And I'm Mystic.
And this is Lore Together. This is where a husband and wife team get together and we talk about all the stories, world building, minutia, and details of video games because that's what we like to do together. We lore together.
Yes, and this is episode 11. We are continuing our look at the Book of Atrus.
Yeah, part 2. But first, we just want to... Okay, we're releasing this episode in a very weird week in history for the United States. Actually, weird is probably not the best word. More like a stressful, trying time. We just want to acknowledge that... first things first, Black Lives Matter. We are an interracial family, and we don't want to spend too much time on the episode talking about this because there are a lot of more educated and experienced people who are going to speak intelligently about police brutality, specifically against the Black community in the United States of America, as well as the history of injustice that the Black community has had to endure. And as a member of the Black community, my heart has been breaking, and Mystic's heart's been breaking because he's now in an interracial family. So we want to acknowledge the fact that that's something that's been going on, and we want to support the fight against any injustice whatsoever. And this episode is meant to be a respite from all of that. Mm-hmm.
We're not a news podcast or anything like that.
No.
So.
And it's not that we're apolitical. I think that's an impossible thing to be. Especially when you're in a minority household. But I do think that one thing we can offer is something to think about outside of it. If you just want to take your eyes off the news, take your eyes off your research and your nuance, and after you take a break from seeing the whole picture of what's happening in the United States, help us see a whole picture of one of our favorite fictional worlds that, takes on its own ideas of nuance and justice and other stuff somewhat related in that way. So that's all. We just wanted to briefly touch on that because we don't want you all to think that we've ignored it.
That we don't know what's going on.
We don't know what's going on. We're in the middle of Chicago. We're not going to be able to avoid it, but we're hoping that we can provide you guys a show where if you need a break from even thinking about it, here's your break. And again, thank you everybody who's fighting the good fight out there.
Also, just so you know, we don't record our podcast in advance, so that's kind of what's going on.
Right. So,
but yeah, so let's go back to what we did last time. Awkwardly segue away from current events.
Yeah, and with that, let's continue. Let's start the respite, I guess is the best way to segue out of that.
So last time we covered Atrus and his birth, his childhood, growing up in the Cleft with Anna. We covered his father coming into his life after 14 years. Fun times.
Oh,
and
gosh. I got angry.
Yes, Safi got angry. And then we get to kind of learning that Gen is kind of crazy.
Well, let's not say crazy just yet. I think the thing
Mad with power?
Deluded, I think, is a really good word for Gen. I would say, from what I remember, it was funny, because what'll happen is Mystic will edit the episode. He lets me listen to it to make sure that I don't sound too dumb. And listening back, I just, my frustration was so palpable. And it's probably going to be palpable again today because it's not like Gen's going to change in the middle of this book anytime soon.
We kind of ended, we heard about the fall of the Denis.
Yes.
And hearing that Tiana, which is Atrus's grandmother, Anna, is kind of central in that story. Mm-hmm. And we ended with Atrus basically being told that he would never be able to see her again.
Right.
And also being told that he'd be able to write an age of his own, which was intriguing to him.
Oh, cool. Yeah, of course.
But Gen also makes him promise to never question his word, to never scheme against him, to basically stuff that's impossible to do.
Right.
You can't police someone's thoughts.
Especially when they've been taught to be an independent thinker the first 14 years of their life. Like, you've missed the chance to indoctrinate them at that point.
But Gen kind of ends this whole thing that he wants Atrus to pledge with, I am master and my word is law. Gen is not a master, though. He takes shortcuts. He experiments in unclean ways. And his worlds are unstable. And we're going to see that here.
Great. So we're just going to get angry again.
Yep.
Yay. All right. But I have no problem being really mad at a fictional character because at least then I don't have to feel guilty about it.
He takes Atrus to many different ages, and we catch up a couple years after they've started going to these different ages and everything.
Okay, so just to make sure I'm remembering this
Mm-hmm.
correctly. So we jump forward a couple years after the whole I locked you up in a cell so you could think about what you did by questioning my
I don't think he locked
authority.
him up in a cell. I think he just locked him in his room.
Locked him up in a room.
Not, I mean, yes, it's still imprisonment,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
But it's different. We'll get to later on where Gen does more stuff.
Okay.
So, um, but finally, for the first time, this has been about somewhere in the third year of him living with Gen. So he's about 17
Mm-hmm.
at this point. Gen finally takes him to what is the 37th age.
37th. So wait, as in he's made 37 ages or he possesses 37 ages?
Um, Gen doesn't name his ages; he just numbers them.
Ooh.
Most people who write ages in both the Mist world, in the Mist continuity, like the stories of Atrus and his family and the Dunny in general, name their ages.
Right, because it's like naming I would think it's like naming a story or naming a painting. Since it's an art, you put a title on it, even if your title is untitled for the first bit, and
Right.
then you think about it for a while.
There's a couple untitled ages, but it's assumed that they probably do have a title if it maybe it just A hasn't been thought up yet, or B the titles have just been lost.
Yeah, that
But
makes sense.
Gen literally stamps his books with Dunny numbers. So like the 37th age has the he's uncreative.
Oh man, okay. This is
But this age is different from all the other ages that Atrus has been to because this is the first time he's visiting an inhabited age.
interesting.
And Atrus is all excited. I get to talk to people and like learn about them.
Because I've been stuck with this jerk in a mute for like the last 2 years.
Right.
And my grandmother has not been able to visit. So the only friend I really had and consistent all my life is gone, and I'm stuck with this jerk.
Right. And Gen is completely dismissive of the culture, telling them don't expect much. They're immensely simple folk. He calls them
Ooh.
crude, eking out a meager existence with fishing and basic agriculture.
Well,
And this is going to take you off. As for their culture, and then he just laughs. Just like, as for their culture.
okay, so let's talk about the notion of what a savage is, because this sounds very colonial and European right now. I mean,
It is.
you know, it's funny because we're talking about a respite, but I'm gonna bring this in. The reason certain cultures evolve the way they do is because of what they have around them. For example, there's been all this research as to why did Europe get to come to quote unquote prominence while the United States native population did not. Well, resources. Our resources weren't as limited. There wasn't as much fight about them. We didn't have as many plagues because of it. So there was no need to develop agriculture in the same way that Europe did. And P.S. Even though Europe is considered a lot of times very cultured, they didn't get civilization first. Mesopotamia did. And don't also forget, what was happening in South America. And all of those cultures evolved because of the resources and situation they were in. I mean, the Aztecs are a great example of a resource rich culture who essentially had a hierarchy and a structure that rivaled, if not surpassed, a lot of Europe's early history.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't think of it that way because it's so alien to the Western society idea, and it's because they had a different set of the regions had different climates, they had different landscapes, they had different interactions with other cultures in them. Even just the size of the land mass
Right.
can dictate how things are done. The
Well,
how
also-
many diseases end up developing because of the way they do agriculture or not, and all of that.
Yeah.
There's
Well, even if we're talking about just American history,
yeah.
as your Eurocentric American history is that is also drastically altered by the fact that before Europeans settled here, like disease
Yeah.
swept through all of the continent, killing off a huge proportion of the population.
Squanto, who helped the Pilgrims when they first came to the Americas, left his people for some reason. And when he came back, they had all were dead. They were all dead. He was one of the loneliest people. And then the Pilgrims were there, and he was like, well, at least this is human interaction. I should help them survive. Like, this is why this just drives me insane, because to be somebody to look at another culture and essentially say, well, you're not as advanced as mine. Well,
Advancement is determined not only by technology.
right, and it's not. And I will say this: advancement of a civilization is not determined by the baseline intellect of a human, because and we're just going to call these people humans because I'm just going to assume
Generally,
that's the baseline.
it's like Stargate. Everyone's human.
Yeah, exactly. Human civilization and the way it evolves, I just want to say, after I've gone on that little ramble, is more dictated on the fact that there are certain resources and developments and regions and climates that are available to the person, rather than the quote unquote intellect of the people who are there.
Right.
That to judge your culture, who basically evolved completely differently because of different circumstances, to another culture, it's very much an apple and oranges situation. I'm gonna stop. We could spend a whole. We could just, I have to find a historian and we'll talk. We should talk about civilizations at some point. I'll try to make that a bonus episode someday.
Yeah. But okay, so let's get to the people then, because that's the fun part.
Yes, exactly.
So,
we're finally seeing people after 2 years of Gen basically annoying the heck out of Atrus, I'm sure.
Gen introduces the villagers, who are several hundred.
Wow.
This is not a small village. And basically it's a grand announcement, gathering them all, proclaiming that this is my son, blah, blah, blah. Whatever he wants, you will give him. Whatever he asks, you will do. Is it understood? The villagers all respond in that, monotone talking to our God type thing. It is understood.
This sounds like Rick and Morty right now. The episode where it turns out the car engine is a civilization, and he just given the middle finger, being like, I told them this is peace amongst worlds. It's so bad. Anyway.
So then Gen gives Atrus a journal to keep his observations about the age, because Atrus is still learning.
Right.
And then he's sent with Gen's acolyte to where he'll be staying. He's not staying with Gen. He is staying with this old woman. This is the oldest person he's ever seen at this point. Like, this is older than Anna.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah. And there he is shown what his father would consider primitive accommodations. But Atrus, it reminds him of Home in the Cleft.
Right, because Anna was a woman of simple living, as much as she was an intelligent woman who wanted Atrus to learn about, scientific discovery and observation.
Well, let's not forget, I don't know if we covered that. We did cover this. Atrus was building a battery on the volcanic vent.
Exactly.
So that would have been the first, continual energy that they would have had.
Right.
So
he's used to, you have to maintain a hearth and that kind of stuff.
And the woman brings him soup and bread.
Okay.
He has no idea what the soup is. He just thinks it's delicious. In fact, it's the best soup he's ever had, Anna's notwithstanding. And I don't know why that is. Everyone feeds him soup in this book. It's really weird.
Why do I feel like it's related to the obsession with water?
I think it's partially just because soup is a very simple meal to make.
Yeah, you just put everything in a pot and you let it boil to death. Yeah.
When she asks if he wants more and he says, "Can I?" she is overjoyed, quote, as if in those two words he had offered her all the riches of Duni.
Really?
Think about this. Her God likes her cooking.
The son of her God likes
her
cooking.
This woman may not have children.
Oh, there's no indication.
I don't remember if there is or not, but that was what I took with it, was maybe that she's never had this opportunity to feed someone like this.
Oh, okay.
That's what I took from it. I could be wrong.
Okay.
I bring these up. This woman is not consequential in this main story, but she is a person who forms a strong bond with Atrus, and the fact that these people have a strong bond with him will come back, even if they themselves are not major players in the story.
Wow. Okay.
So he woke up in darkness before dawn, and he sees the night sky. And he notices that it's no constellations that he knows are in the sky. So it's nowhere on Earth.
Okay.
And this is where he kind of begins to formulate the idea that they don't make worlds, but rather they link to a pre-existing possibility. This is where he starts to think, like,
Oh.
why would you not just use the night sky? Why would you make it different?
Right,
Why?
because
Yeah.
at that point it just almost doesn't matter if you're more. There's other things you're trying to observe, especially somebody who knows about the difference between a control and variables.
Right.
He that makes perfect sense.
A few days later, he is woken by the old woman. Gen wants to see him.
Mm-hmm.
And he leaves and he finds his father's acolyte. And this is a very simple but very important conversation right here. He asks the acolyte his name.
Okay.
And the man responds, One.
Oh, come on.
The name Gen gave him. And Atrus goes, I should have known. Was it always your name? To which he responds, my birth name was Coena.
Interesting.
And then he asks how long has one, or Coena, whichever, I don't remember which one he uses, has been his father's acolyte, to which Coena responds, 1,000 days.
What? Wait.
So about 3 years.
Okay.
Age 37 is a very important age, and we're going to see why.
Wait, so essentially 3 years, but Atrus didn't know that his father was going into this world and...
Well, it's 3 years within this age. Who knows how long... like, how long is a day versus how long is a day on Earth?
Okay, so
who knows?
age time might be different than
right. I don't know if
Earth
I don't know
time
if it
to
is or
me
not,
time,
but yeah. But still, 3 years.
Okay.
Everyone here is older than 3, except obviously, except for the kids. The old woman is definitely older than 3.
She's it could be like Star Trek Voyager and Kess's people, where they live.
Oh God.
It's just
And,
sorry, that was
So
awful.
Atrus begins to wonder if these people have memories before Gen.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't ask at this point, but Gen would argue that through the writing of the world the world would create itself, and the inhabitants, if any, would have memories that they needed to make the world make sense.
Okay.
Atrus is not at all sure of that
Right.
line of thinking. So, and then as they're walking, he hears this cry of like this animal, and he looks around. He sees this strange, weird creature that seems too heavy to fly, with large rodent. It's like this large rodent-like thing with long arms. And Koina's like, "Oh, that's a bird."
Really?
To which Atrus wonders why Gen would write such a weird creature.
Or if he intended to write such a weird
Right, because
creature.
all the other ages that Atrus has been on, they've had birds.
Right, I would assume so.
And so Gen shows Atrus this large map of the island, and Atrus notices that the map is inaccurate. He's pointing out parts and like, where's this, and they're just not there anymore. Gen's just like, it's gone. And he asks how, and Gen just shrugs and then gives him a book with certain key phrases copied from the Age 37 descriptive book. Basically, look at this, look at the world, see how things are interacting, that type of stuff, which makes sense,
Right, but to not have an answer as to why things change, the audience can't see how bug-eyed I went. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
it just happens. Like, excuse me?
He is definitely using Atrus to figure out why his own ages are unstable.
Ah, okay.
So he leaves Atrus for a few days, and during that time, Atrus asks the villagers if they can take him out into the water to the mist wall out in the ocean, because he's curious, like, what's going on out there?
Yeah,
Let's go out.
exactly.
And they get in the boat, and they get caught in a bubbling current, just this almost like a riptide current. And the men bow down in prayer, and he's like, no, you have to row, help me row. And then he orders them to row. He commands them to
Oh,
row.
wow. Okay.
And when they get back, one of the men says they have, quote, cheated the whiteness.
Cheated the whiteness?
Yeah, and so later, Atrus asks Coena and finds out that the whiteness was their master before Gen showed up.
Oh, this sounds so problematic right now. Do you think that that using the idea of whiteness was intentional by the author? Or do you think it was just because it's a mist. Mist, it tends to be gray-white kind of thing. So it's just coincidental.
Don't know. They definitely do have, I think they realize in their writing that Gen is problematic and colonial.
Yeah.
Like, he definitely has a power trip. He definitely sees these people as, quote, savages. So I think they understand that aspect of it. It is from the 90s.
Yeah.
I don't know if they were, quote, as woke. But Atrus is still like through all that we hear about Atrus and Anna and stuff. There is no good to come from anything that would harm another.
Right.
So that is a lesson that he is taught very early on. So I don't think that he would like, as a message, I don't think they're trying to say anything about race in this, other than Gen is like this corrupt power and drive is the problem.
I just find it interesting that that they've cheated the whiteness. Just seems
right.
So it almost feels Brechtian how much it like hits you on the head. That's all.
The mist wall or the whiteness is caused by Gen's writing. Actually, Gen explains this actually because he knows, like he doesn't know that the mist was their master or what they consider like their whatever, but he knows that the mist wall is there. He knows that the current is there. He knows parts of this, and he explains that the island is on a pedestal of rock, surrounded by a deep and immensely cold ocean, and that geothermal warming at the base of the pedestal warms the water, which sends it up. And then when it reaches the ocean at the edge of the island, it makes the mist wall.
Okay.
So Gen leaves at this point and goes back to Kavir, leaving Atrus here, and returning later, starting a great feast, for the whiteness is no more.
Oh, so he did something to affect the geothermal nature of the pedestal.
And the villagers all stare at Gen, eyes filled with awe, because he destroyed their old god. And as Atrus falls asleep, he kind of realizes what you just realized, that Gen made the ocean warmer.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, because then there's
how Atrus doesn't know, because there's a multitude of ways you could do that. You could move the planet, you could tilt the planet, you could change the layer of the rock.
Just a bunch of farting plesiosaurs circling the pedestal, because that's where my brain went.
Your brain's weird sometimes, honey. Meanwhile, during all of this, he has given Atrus the opportunity to write his first age.
Aw, that's sweet. I'm not excited.
And Atrus writes a beautiful and stable age, which he names Inception.
Can we do the bwah? I'm sorry.
So Atrus, when they go, Atrus actually makes a mistake here. He does forget the linking book when they link.
Oh.
Gen doesn't. So that is a lesson learned that really was a good thing that Gen was there to teach him that one at least, because otherwise they would have been trapped.
Right, you would have to try to figure out how to write a book in the middle of nowhere.
Good luck.
Yeah. How are you going to make a printing press? Do you even have? Did you even make trees? Do you even tree, bro?
And yeah, literally, Gen's like, if I didn't remember your precious linking book, where would we be? So he's like, let's go see what you wrote.
And of course, it's admonishment. It's not a gentle lesson. It's
well, to be fair, it could have killed them.
Could have.
Yeah. So for once, it's like Gen's not being harsh just to be harsh. There's a reason. You could have killed us.
Right. That's fair.
Atrus also kind of sees how intent is not absolute. He wrote no birds, yet there are birds.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The only thing he does write in very specifically is small blue flowers, like the ones in the cleft over his mother's grave.
Aw.
So.
Yeah.
And when he again inspects this age, Gen is impatient. He's just like, oh, that, not bad. But he's impatient to turn to Dunny and write more. He doesn't want to stay and explore it all. Atrus wants to do experiments. Let's check the soil. Let's capture a creature. Yeah,
I could see that. Like, let's see. So since I wrote it this way, I want to see how it expresses itself.
Right.
That makes perfect sense.
And so Gen doesn't even value his ages at all. He doesn't value his ages at all.
That's why he numbers them. He doesn't even name them.
Right. And he tells Atrus they have to return for a Korfa Vajah.
Korfa Vajah? What kind of Klingon stuff is this?
It's Dunny. It's KORFAHV''JA.
Yes, fans, feel free to correct us at loretogether@gmail.com if we mispronounce that.
Yeah, I'm terrible at pronunciations, as we discovered last time when I was trying to do the cat's name.
In our first episode, we couldn't even pronounce Oregon right. Did I didn't
or Spokane.
Spokane. Yeah. Yeah,
So.
we fail. Anyway, that was just poking fun at us.
So back in Dunny, in his library in Kavir, Gen tells Atrus the ceremony, the Korfa Vajah, which sounds like a really good meat wrap or something.
Korfa Vajah, I'm still
just equating our stuff with food again.
Yeah. No, because yes. No, I can see what you're saying. But Korfa when you say it as like the tradition of Korfa I imagine we're in a dark lit room with runes and that there's robes involved.
And Klingon pain sticks.
Maybe. Maybe. I will allow it.
I just remember that was a terrible episode of TNG. At least I didn't like it.
Mm.
So the Korfafaja is basically a ceremony for a new god, a god crowning ceremony. I think Gen is seriously misconstruing something here.
God crowning ceremony.
I think this is something that Gen has created, possibly. It may be in Dunny culture, but I don't think it's the way he couches it.
Right.
I think this, because literally this is a ceremony for someone who has written their first age. It's like you have now, like, I think the Dunny wouldn't approach it like you're a god now. I think
because
they would approach
it's called the art. It's not
Right.
even called the creation, which would make more sense if you were trying to relate it to godhood.
Right.
You'd name it. You wouldn't call it the art. Oh
But
my gosh.
yeah, they create worlds. They are gods, and the people of age 37 need to be reminded of that.
That's a scary phrase you just told me.
Right. And then he's been writing in the descriptive book, making subtle changes.
Subtle.
Subtle changes that you can't see and all this other. Basically, he's making changes in the book. And then Atrus questions why he's making changes. And then Gen bursts into a rant. He criticizes Atrus because of all the notebooks of ages Atrus had been keeping, test books and stuff that he was working with. Only the one he thought was enough to be a proper age. And then in the same breath, he criticizes him for sticking to the conventional kind of writing and not experimenting and writing more quickly.
More quickly? It's an art.
He contradicts himself and confuses Atrus, who wonders whether his father wants stable worlds or quick ones.
Well, I mean, the guy within, let's say, so it would have been 14 years, wrote 37 ages. He's not crafting
at the least.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a tender craft. Which I mean, who knows? Maybe Atrus writes as much time.
Well, you're gonna love this
he
quote.
Gets older, but you're gonna yes. Notice the sarcasm, please, audience.
So this is a quote from the book. It says, Gen Huff, exasperated. You are no good to me if you work at this pace all the time. I need ages, dozens of them, hundreds of them. That is our task, Atrus, don't you see? Our sacred task, to make ages and populate them, to fill up the nothingness with worlds we can own and govern so that the Dunny will be great again, so that my grandsons will be lords of 1,000,000 worlds.
Oh, that's gross. That's just gross. Okay, so gross. so much colonialism in my freaking fiction right now. If this sounds bad, it's because I keep looking away from the mic as if that's where all everything I object to is. I'm like, oh no, I can't look. I must look away. No, this is absurd and disgusting and abhorrent on so many levels.
So Gen hurries Atrus off to age 37, and they start going through with this stupid ceremony that Gen has concocted to godhood.
Now, is that your nomer stupid?
Yes.
Are you okay? So it's why do you call the ceremony stupid?
Because as we're talking about it, I really do think that Gen is misconstruing what is a rite of passage into a godhood thing.
Right. It's kind of like he almost did cultural appropriation for his own culture, which is just the saddest situation.
But as soon as they link in, they realize something has gone terribly wrong. The lake is dry. The ocean is way below the level of the island, so that it's not even flowing into the water.
That sounds like people probably have been dying recently.
It's just like outside of that pedestal, you can just see air. Like the ocean is so far down, you can't even see it easily.
No.
And basically, Gen has ruined the age, and he doesn't even realize it. He just keeps saying those phrases. There was nothing wrong with them. So he doesn't even know what he did.
Well, that's why you see, so a true scientist, which is probably something Atrus would do, which takes time.
Right.
You change a phrase at a time, and then you observe the changes. You don't, and you said that Gen changed several phrases before they went into.
Yeah, he changes stuff. He literally just like copy and pastes. This phrase sounds good. This phrase sounds good. Like that type of stuff.
Oh man, it's like a
and the world
paint by numbers thing.
without having any structure to it.
Oh,
Yeah, he hasn't taken the time to actually learn what he's doing. He learned enough to be dangerous and then stopped.
that's like me with computer tech.
So the world is falling apart, and Quenya has come to Gen to ask for help from his master, saying,
Of course.
you have to help us, you must. And Gen says, who says I must?
What?
And then Gen spins all of this as a demonstration of his powers, a demonstration of what would happen if the villagers ever defied him. And then they rush the ceremony, and then they leave the age.
I'm speechless. I'm speechless because that is the worst oh my gosh. Okay.
Like, you even know you screwed up, but you are so egocentric and so proud of doing something that you don't understand what you're doing that you won't even admit, I have to fix this. No, it's a demonstration of your power.
So that he's got to cover for his own mistake by essentially making it about how powerful he is.
Right.
Okay.
So back in the library on Kavir again, Atrus nags Gen to basically fix age 37, as Gen claimed he could, that he could fix it.
Right.
And then Gen crosses out all the changes that he's made to the book, and doesn't quite realize that he's like, if you add it without care, you can't just remove it without care either.
This almost sounds like the best thing I think I could compare it to when you're because you're talking about a living art is gardening. So, for example, so my mother gardens, and she basically, when we moved to the house that my parents still live in now, she tore out all the soil so she could garden. And for years we had, I think before we were even dating, there was this huge tree that used to cover the backyard. So she had to do this shade-loving garden, which is actually really hard if anybody doesn't know how gardening works. It's hard to find plants that prefer minimal sun, that are going to grow and become boisterous. And in fact, even if you get a shade-loving plant, it can reduce how much it grows. Then out of nowhere, the tree that was out there was marked to be cut down because it got Dutch elm disease. That was a big deal in the neighborhood we were in. And it changed the whole dynamic of the garden entirely. And that tree had probably been growing there for at least, I want to say at least 60, 70 years. It was a big, big tree before it finally passed away. But the thing is, it's not just removing the tree and the shade, you're also removing the root structure underneath that's starting to rot underneath it and all this stuff. And it changed the whole dynamic of the garden. It probably changed the pH of the soil. It changed the sun that was available. It changed the water that could be absorbed by all the little plants. And certain plants just thrive. They were like, look, we love the shade, but this is much better. We're all for it. And other ones ended up dying off.
It's actually appropriate that you start talking about gardening and stuff, because Atrus couches all of this in the Great Tree of Probability.
Really?
That by removing lines, he's taking it back up the tree, and then it goes, when he removes certain lines and doesn't remove others, it takes it down a different branch.
Oh, yeah. I could see that. Yeah.
And then he's not changing the age, he's changing where it links to. So it's similar. It's like parallel universe theory at this point.
Oh, man. I love parallel universe theory, except for when it's overused in fiction, like I've mentioned before. But anyway, continue.
Well, Atrus goes to see the new age and comes back kind of knowing that Gen doesn't know what he's doing, because he sees Quenya.
Yeah.
Quenya doesn't speak Dunny anymore. All these people are speaking Dunny, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Like rudimentary Dunny. Because, of course, Gen would force them to learn Dunny.
He's such an arrogant tool. Oh
and he threatens Atrus with a weapon, and Atrus also notices that the meeting hut is gone. So this is an age before Gen even showed up.
Oh my gosh, so they basically went back in time because he just erased part of the descriptive
Well, I don't think they
text.
go back in time. I think what it's doing is that age that Gen tampered with is still there, but there's no way to go back to it.
Okay, so because...
If you remember when we were talking about what a descriptive book does, it's like a seed value.
Oh,
so he's changed where that's linking to, but the other place still exists.
So you'd have to change it exactly back to go back to...
Which is impossible.
Right.
So.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
So Atrus goes back after giving like one last long look at this place, because he's never going to see it again, he knows.
Yeah.
Or at least this version of it, and just runs back and goes back to the linking book. And when he returns, his father is drugged on this pipe that he smokes constantly, this ornate pipe.
Okay.
And Atrus is really angry and yells at his father. And in his anger, he says that Gen's ages are unstable because he doesn't understand what he's been doing all these years. He doesn't understand the whole.
Right, which goes back to what Anna was trying to teach Atrus. You have to see the the whole picture. You have to understand the nuance.
And Gen becomes furious at Atrus's words
Because
because they hit home.
well, not
Yeah.
only did they hit home, but now he's like, "Don't question me ever." And Atrus not only questioned him, but questioned him with some really good criticism.
Right. And he yells at Atrus that Atrus, is the one who doesn't know what he's doing. That he says that Atrus couldn't possibly learn to write in 3.5 years, and that he, Gen, has been studying for 30 years since he was 4.
I've been doing coloring books since I was 4 too, but I'm not. I'm not an artist, guys.
And then he takes Atrus's age inception
Uh-oh.
and begins criticizing how it's written. And then he takes up a pen
No.
and starts crossing out what he calls unnecessary phrases.
No.
He thinks that Atrus has gotten them all out of other books, and Atrus wrote it all by scratch.
This is awful. And you know what this reminds me of?
That guy who deleted his son's Minecraft world.
That is exactly. That's not. You punished your son by basically saying everything you created is worthless. So don't you ever bother to create again if you're not going to follow my lead. This is exactly that. This is awful.
Yeah, and the concept of creating the words from scratch, the phrases from scratch, Gen doesn't even begin to understand that concept. It's too slow.
Of course, it's too slow.
So Atrus is horrified that Gen is just like crossing these out and being like, "Where'd you find this nonsense about the blue flowers and all this other stuff?" And,
Which,
yeah.
I mean, like, you're basically saying any tribute to your dead mother that you never met is worthless.
Well, Gen doesn't know there's flowers there. He has no idea what the reference is.
Well, because he didn't bother to even know who his son is. He comes for 14 years of letting his own mother raise his son and says, P.S., I still think you're an awful person, even though I let you raise my son, but I'm going to take him back and he's mine now. And now he gets to listen to me exactly for everything I want because he's going to be my legacy. Gosh, I want to punch him in the face already. What is wrong with this guy?
Basically, Gen ruins the age. And looking coldly at his son, he accuses Atrus of being just like his grandmother, headstrong and inclined to meddle.
Oh, no, he didn't. Oh, no, he didn't. Okay, side note, when I was a teenager, my mom sometimes would tell me when she was pissed at me, "You're just like your dad." To which my response is, "Why did you have kids with him?" So I hate it when parents say stuff like that. It's like, well, that was it's impossible for me to escape
Right.
that. Come on.
You left me with her for 14 years. What do you want me to do?
Right, exactly. God forbid I'm like the woman who actually raised me. Jeez. Oh, okay, continue.
Okay, so Atrus tells Gen that he claimed to have fixed the 37th age, but instead he had changed the link to a different age and really fixed nothing. He asks Gen to let him do it.
Oh, wow.
And Gen contemptuously says that the book is defective.
What?
And throws it in the fire. And the link is lost at this point, and his friends now, Coena and the old woman and stuff, they will all perish in that destroyed universe that Gen was originally trying to fix.
Oh, man.
And who knows what's going to happen with the one that the new universe is. So who knows? Atrus will never find out.
Oh, man. And that, what? I mean, again, this just, remember when you talked about the burnt books and just, to me, it's genocide.
Right.
Because I don't even know if those worlds will continue to exist if the descriptive text doesn't exist. It's like
it's actually a debate in the fan community. I think I don't think it's established one way or the other whether they do or not. I think most people believe that they do.
Okay.
But
maybe you know what? Before this episode comes out, I'm going to tweet and ask what people think, because my interpretation is it would be a literal heat death of the universe. It would just go, but I don't know the world as much. I'm here to learn about it, so
Yeah. So Atrus is
Oh
obviously
man.
stunned and heartsick at all this.
Right. It was just one of the cruelest things to do.
Right. And he doesn't quite know what he's going to do or where he's going to go. He just knows that his father is mad and he can't stay with him.
Well, it's not only he's mad with power.
Like that type of mad, like
Yeah.
crazy mad. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
And he decides that he still has to say goodbye. He has to say he's leaving. He can't just leave.
But he's 16 at this point, right?
17.
17. Yeah, that's just youth naivete.
Yeah, he can't just leave with his tail between his legs. He has to at least go and try to say
That's no, you can't. Nope, 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 nope. You don't have to say goodbye. If somebody is that toxic in your life, you get to walk away without explanation. Audience, do not stick around. It's not worth it.
Well, he finds Gen in his study, heavily drugged on his pipe again.
Yeah.
And there, just beside his father's outstretched hand, is a notebook that he was always consulting on the way into Dunny. Curiosity overwhelms Atrus. He takes it up and opens it to the first page, reading what is written there, the Book of Atrus.
What?
At first he's confused, but then he realized that it refers not to himself, but to Gen's father.
Right. Okay. Atrus's grandfather. Yeah.
Right. Quote, he read on, then stopped, the last thread that had connected him to his father broken in that instant. Slowly he sat down in Gen's chair, nodding to himself, a bitter laugh escaping him. There he'd been, admiring his father, exalting him almost for his courage, his patience in finding a path through the darkness of the tunnels back to Denis. And all the while the path had been clearly marked here in his grandfather's notebook. It wasn't Gen who had taken the risk, but Gen's father.
Oh, my word. Okay. So, Gen's pedestal of greatness is essentially,
Just completely destroyed now.
Gen essentially not only stands on the shoulders of giants, but also, there's been people who scientists who say, my discovery is built on other people's discoveries and stuff, the idea layers. But so metaphorically, Gen not only stands on the shoulders of giants,
but doesn't acknowledge them.
but then we'll just tell everybody, yes, because I am naturally this tall. This is just such a awful.
So,
oh man.
Under the painful weight of this disillusionment, Atrus takes the notebook, the Book of Atrus, and leaves Kavir, saying to Gen, who's still unconscious, "Why did you have to be so small a man?"
Just knocked him off that pedestal. Oh
And he tries to make back the tunnels to the surface where he had left Anna nearly 4 years before now. But Gen's paranoia has served him well. He had taken a single page from the book and kept it locked away, which he couldn't get through the tunnels without it. When he realizes that Atrus is gone, Gen summons Regis, and they both pursue Atrus, catching up with him in the tunnels. They return him to Denis and lock him in the deepest room in the island mansion of Kavir.
Please tell me there's a puzzle that Atrus patiently gets out of this.
Funnily, Atrus actually looks for one because he's like, I remember that they like puzzles and stuff. And he starts looking for one. He doesn't find one.
Okay. I was going to say that would have been so poetic at that moment.
You have actually seen this room.
Oh.
This is the room that Atrus is in at the end of the game Myst.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah. So, because that's the only linking book he has to go back to that room. So.
He can't even. Oh my gosh. Okay.
There's nothing in the room except for a descriptive book of Gen's fifth age and a linking book.
Yeah.
And Atrus.
So not a descriptive book, a linking book.
No, a descriptive book.
Oh, okay.
And a linking book. Because you need a linking book to get back. And he's not going to tell Atrus where his is.
Right.
So, and Atrus thinks it's a trap. And so he leaves it alone and searches for secret passages, as you said, or another way out, but can't find any. He finds an old stonecutter tool and uses it to kind of try to break open the wall near a door where there's a slight crack, and ends up collapsing that whole section of the room.
Yikes.
So
now he's just stuck with a bunch of rocks.
And a book. And turning his attention back to the desk and what is actually the Book of Age 5. So one of Gen's earlier ages.
Right.
Atrus wonders why Gen left the book there. What does he want? Is it, why leave him pen and ink and a linking book back to this room? So he realizes that Gen never does anything without some self-serving purpose, though.
Okay. I want to say my theory before you tell me if I'm right or wrong. this one might. We last saw Gen before he came back to get his 14-year-old son. We last saw him when his spouse, who was from not Dunny, but one of his ages,
Mm-hmm.
gave birth to Atrus.
Mm-hmm. Ketra, I think. Or Keta.
Yeah, Keta.
Keta.
Keta, what if this is the age where Keta is from, and therefore Atrus's, a quarter of Atrus's, I would think, again, being as power hungry as he is, and this is kind of disgusting to think about, would, I mean, he'd be like, oh, I've perfected writing. This must be the age where I must settle down and get myself a wife. Because, I mean, he was doing that at, like, what, age 19?
Yeah. Well, 19 was when Atrus was born.
So yeah, that's around the time when a lot of young men who think like Gen, like really start exploring that ego and the expectation, the entitlement that comes with it, and so that would make sense that he would proceed to find an age, find a lady, you know.
I just looked it up. Keta is not from this age. She
Okay.
is from a tribe called the Ahmad.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I can really find. There's some stuff here on Keta, but not a lot.
Okay, it was just a theory that I had, just thinking about it, see why it would be self-serving to Gen, and the reason Gen would do that, it would be an ego stroke.
Right.
So
I'm sure this is still an ego stroke, but at this point, Atrus has really no choice. He just starts reading the book.
okay.
And we're going to quote the book again here. It says, "For several hours he sat there, slowly leafing through the pages, noting all the flaws, all the possible contradictions that Gen's particular writing style have thrown up. More than ever, he could see his father's limited vision on every page, like a hideous tapestry quilted together from exquisite patches of silk. The entire work was short-sighted and disjointed, and yet it was also paradoxically quite clever, surprisingly so.
Huh.
There is one thing that he does want to see there, though, and it's the tree.
The tree?
It is a gigantic tree.
Okay.
Absolutely gigantic. In fact, We'll put this on the Twitter, but I'm gonna show Safi a picture of it right now from the book.
Okay, and I'll try to describe it, to be perfectly honest. The tree, at least in the book that Mystic has, it looks like it's mostly thick trunk, and then there's the short. It's got to have it at most short branches to start with, like this.
But massive.
Huge amount of leaves, just
yeah,
like.
And I think those are actual full-size trees down here.
So it is so essentially.
I will say we do see this tree in the second game.
Okay.
It is huge. So,
yeah, because that looks
or
pretty
part
gigantic.
Of this tree, I should
so
say.
imagine if you know, like imagine a redwood, but then also imagine it times 10 or 20.
It almost looks like a waterfall. Like it's that broad.
It's super broad. It's kind of like, so in the picture, it kind of looks like it's shaped like broccoli. So if you imagine that the regular sized trees are the size of like peas on your plate, and then you have a stalk of broccoli standing amongst them, that's the size comparison you want to have between regular trees and the tree.
Yeah. And Atrus is kind of transfixed by these phrases describing it, that it's economy of expression and elegance to these phrases. And probably Gen didn't write this himself. He probably pulled it from somewhere.
Ah, okay.
And he reads the book closely, memorizing all the details, almost like he's building a map in his brain. Because, roughly you can do that kind of well enough.
Somebody like Atrus who grew up the way he did probably could. No, I cannot. So I always admired people who do that. So, but I could see Atrus doing that.
So Atrus goes into the Fifth Age, and he's exploring around, and he finds this weird pool. And it's in the ceiling of a room.
So like the water's not falling down.
It's staying even with the pool, with the surface.
Okay, that's really impressive too. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's like, well, what's this about? He climbs up into this, and he tries to like go to the other end because he can see there's light above him.
Oh, okay.
So he's climbing. He can't quite make it. He actually drowns in the pool, and then he floats to the surface of a pool that he had seen when he walked in, like a well that he had seen when he got in there.
So it was like a transportation device of some sort?
Don't know. So he drowns, and two natives, Karel and Erlar, find him and bring him to their house, and they essentially perform like CPR and get the water out of him and all that stuff, and he's resting in their place.
Okay, great. Luckily, this is a populated age.
Yeah, and he wakes up finally, and they tell him, "You are on Riven in the village."
So this is Riven.
This is Riven.
Okay.
And they feed him because he's famished, and then he just falls asleep. Drowning is hard on the body.
Yeah, it takes a lot of energy to survive that.
The whole time, there is a woman seated in the room watching everything closely. And this is Katran, and these two men are her cousins.
Okay.
And later, Atrus wakes up with a start, and he begins to look around the room and stuff. And he notices the simple design of the dwelling. Like they actually call out, like, the hearth is very simple, unlike the ornate dunny ones, and he actually prefers the simple one. Like,
right. That makes sense. Yeah.
So, and then as he's looking around, he sees this woman staring back at him with, quote, startling green eyes.
Ooh.
And they talk, but he is evasive. When she asks what he was doing in the pool, he says he doesn't know. When she asks where he's from, he just says another place. Because he doesn't know what he can and can't say.
And unlike Gen, he is careful to insinuate
right. She's annoyed,
power. Yeah.
But his first honest answer is his name, Atrus. He asks her for her name, and she responds, Katran. Atrus hears this as Catherine, and she tries to correct him, but for some reason, he never hears it as Katran.
That's the weirdest water in your ear hearing deficiency I've ever heard.
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe it's it is supposed to be Katran, Tran. The emphasis is on the last syllable.
Katran, okay.
Yeah. But he hears Catherine. He never hears it as Katran, only as Catherine, and eventually she just gives up trying to correct him and just rolls with it because...
Oh, man. Okay.
Because he just never seems to hear it correctly. He never corrects it. And it's not... I don't think it's out of any malice on his part. He just, for some reason, he can't hear it correctly.
Right. Right. But that's an interesting analogy because if we now know who this Catherine probably is gonna become... It's almost kind of like a version of rose-tinted glasses when you think about it. Like, she, her most entire human self is who she is, Katran, but he will always kind of see this more idolized version of her, which is Catherine.
I don't know.
Because love is blind like that. That's just, okay, that I could be totally wrong. They probably didn't even mean it like that. It's probably just a funny little ditty.
She just rolls with it. Like, she is annoyed at first. Her eyes flicker with annoyance, but she just stops bothering at this point. Like,
right. Well, because she probably could understand. I mean, there's certain names in other cultures that I would never be able to really pronounce well.
Right.
I know somebody whose middle name actually is from a language that has clicks and has a click in it, and I just accept the fact that my Romance language-based person, I'm just never going to pronounce that right, and that's okay.
So let's get on with what else is going on in Riven, because this is Gen's age. He obviously has something going on here.
Right. So they call it Riven. So they probably don't know of Gen, or if they
know of Gen.
Oh.
But this is kind of like an earlier Gen. It's a weirder Gen.
Okay.
Literally, Katran and her cousins have like a mark on their neck of like the Dunny symbol 5.
Ooh, that sounds bad.
Yeah, it gets weird. Gen has obviously established himself as a god on Riven. He has selected certain of the natives to be his guild. This is something that they didn't do on 37. He's doing here.
His guild?
Yeah. Riven is a bit more, for lack of a better term, advanced than the 37th age.
So a little bit more like civilization as the Dani know it.
Right. They have some level of technology beyond what the people in the 37th age had, which was more just... farming and agriculture. They have, adobe. I don't think it's adobe, but it's like some type of building material they work with other than wood. They have, they have stuff that they do that's beyond what they could have done on the 37th age. So they're a bit more technologically advanced. Gen has even started teaching some of them to copy Dunny symbols, withholding certain keywords which would allow them to write ages.
That's racist. Okay.
Let me hinder you before you even get a chance.
Right.
Katran alone seems to have understood at once the true meaning of the symbol she is copying. She's like a natural at understanding the phrases.
Okay.
Though she's not as talented as Atrus, Gen feels that she is a much more docile and easier to control apprentice.
Oh, that's not a problematic phrase at all, everybody. Oh my god.
It's also not true.
Doesn't sound like it.
And then he tells her that he has decided to marry her. You can say gross again.
Wait, yeah, yes. First of all, power dynamics, gross.
Yeah.
Gross. We in the last episode, if you want to know why gross is the term that I'm going to, just listen to the last episode. I went on a whole tirade
So,
of why I think this stuff is gross.
Literally, quote, "Yes, Katran," he says, looking at her finally now, "you are to be my wife. You will sit at my right hand and rule 1,000 worlds with me." He gives her 30 days before the wedding
For what?
to be prepared for the wedding.
What's she supposed to prepare?
That I don't know. I don't remember that part.
What is she supposed to become a kung fu master? I'm really confused.
The Rivenese wedding ceremony is very strange.
Yeah.
In turn, without telling Atrus why, Katran tells him that he must fix the age of Riven within 30 days.
What? Wait, so does Gen meet up? So, okay, I feel like we might have skipped something. So, Atrus gets to Riven, he meets Katran, and then...
He's still imprisoned either in his little room on Kavir, in the basement, or on Riven. Those are the only two places he will be at this point.
Atrus has met Katran, but he goes back to his cell?
Katran actually also travels to Kavir.
Oh.
The guild goes to Kavir.
Wait, hold on a second. This egocentric, selfish, greedy dude, he already could have had a legacy without even going back to the son he abandoned, because he has a whole guild of people who think that he's teaching them the art, and they're very excited for it.
I should mention also that Atrus knew that there were inhabited ages as well, because he had seen workers, quote unquote, or people come from those ages with things for Gen, or to help with the construction of the mansion stuff. So Atrus has known that there people have been coming, whatever. He's never seen anybody from Riven before, though, as far as I can tell.
Okay, so he knows of people from other ages. He just doesn't know about them.
Right. He doesn't know about the guild. And Katran has stolen several blank books from Gen's study because she has access to it. She is his most trusted disciple.
Right. Okay.
And to which Atrus will use to make experiments so he can write the changes to the descriptive book of Riven.
Okay.
And then Katran shows him what's actually going wrong on Riven. The Great Tree has a giant split in it.
What?
That first appeared as a punishment and warning from Gen. At least that's Gen's story. Probably not.
Yeah, Atrus is already like, holes in that, literally.
One of the guild spoke out of turn, questioning something Gen had said to him. In a fury, Gen forced the villagers to sacrifice the man in what Katran vaguely calls feeding him to the sea.
Okay, wow.
Gen then threatened the people, telling them that if they question him again, he will destroy their world. So, nothing we haven't seen before from this guy.
So here's poor Katran, who's then to be told, "Oh, you're my most beloved disciple. Yeah, I'm going to marry you." And she's like, "This is slavery." I'm sure she thinks of it that way, right? Like, she doesn't sound like she'd be excited about this.
She's not excited about this, actually.
No. Nobody wants to marry somebody who's going to sacrifice people like that.
Here's the crazy thing. Katran has written an age of her own.
On the sly?
Yes.
Nice.
And she lets Atrus read the book. And he doesn't even recognize some of the symbols she's used.
Oh.
Like, Gen never taught those to him, and Katran merely shrugs that off. Just like,
Okay.
And Atrus tells her it's wonderful writing, but it won't work, which is what he thinks until she basically takes his hand and says, "I want you to see it," and links him.
She's like, "I can't show my oppressor. You seem decent enough. Let me take this risk."
Yeah,
we're gonna show you the world.
And it's Atrus is just like the first words are, "It's impossible." Like when he links in.
Really?
Yeah. And we're going to describe, this is unofficially named, it's called Taurus, because there's no name for it.
Taurus, okay.
But we're going to take from the wiki here, because I don't want to go through the book's description as much. It's kind of a dry description.
Yeah, it's a good description, yeah.
The planet of Taurus is a very flat disk, rim-loaded to cause gravitational forces toward the outer edge.
Interesting.
With a large hole punched through the center, hence Taurus.
Yeah.
The atmosphere presumably extends in all directions, and the stars and the sun are visible from opposite sides of the disk.
Okay.
Taurus has a geosynchronous orbit, so that only one side is always facing the sun.
Ooh, nice.
The side on which the sun shines is called the light side. The other side from which the stars are visible is called the dark side. Simple enough.
Who would it? Who would have thought? I mean,
The dark side of the Taurus age is the more remarkable of the two.
mm.
Its most prominent feature is a large column of water which emanates from the hole in the center of the disk and streams into the night sky. Eventually, it evaporates and is gravitationally attracted back to the disk.
Oh my
The
gosh.
pillar of water originates from a dream of Catherine's to swim among the stars. Other notable features of the dark side include wide variety of unusual unnamed organisms, including a rather cat-like flower and exotically crested birds.
So she is incredibly imaginative to a point that probably Gen would never appreciate because unless he wanted to perfectly mimic and replicate it is what my if she were to ever share this information with him is my understanding.
The light side of the Taurus is the most notable for the large lake covering most of the area and surrounded by mountains, which drains through a large whirlpool to feed the jet of water on the other side.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
The mouth of the whirlpool is ringed by several rocky islands covered in flowers. Among these flowers are delicate blue flowers known as ephemerals, also growing in the cleft. The explanation for the strange behavior of water in this age is described by Atrus as an interplay of two forces, a jet force of unknown origin that forces the water through the hole on the light side and away from the Taurus in a constant stream until it evaporates. Basically, this place doesn't break the laws of physics, it just breaks how they can be applied to to dunny rules.
So because she's approaching this from a completely different angle, she's discovered a new way of experiencing the art. This is incredibly creative compared to everything else that you've described of what either Atrus or Gen has written, or even...
Catherine's ages, more than anybody else, tends to be less, I don't want to say less structured, but structured in a weird way. So that she writes a few worlds. Or adapts other worlds. She's very I don't say whimsical. She is very imaginative. She really does break. Everyone else that writes is kind of, it's all natural forms at least. It may just be different, or there may be some things that kind of weird, but not the whole thing. This is a very weird age.
Right.
So
I mean, to think of nobody's even mentioned a world that isn't like based on a kind of a round Earth-like structure at this point until now. You're talking about a disc-shaped planet that has a light and a dark side that has a very one of the way the rotation around the sun is. I mean, that's just fascinating. That's fascinatingly ingenious.
While on the light side, because they walk through the whole thing, Katran tells Atrus that what Gen has planned for her and says that she would rather die than marry him.
Well, I don't blame her because they would be squandering all of her talent.
And so Atrus and Katran, I'm going to say Katran just because that's what's mostly written as usually, decide that they're going to save Riven from destruction. They're going to work together, and Atrus starts doing his experiments. And meanwhile, during the period of not quite 30 days. I forget how many days it is, but they work for a while together over numerous days, a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And Katran eventually comes to him saying that she has written them an age, a place where they can go to be safe from Gen, and she's called it Mist.
She's written Mist.
And he notices that Mist is very different from her other age. It has restraint and a deep understanding of Dunny principles that surpasses even his own.
Well, yeah, because he's only been studying it for 2 years. How long has she been studying it under Gen? And then experimenting with it, too.
And Atrus realizes now that he's seen the worlds that Catherine can write, that it's possible that Gen could create countless slave worlds, subjecting the fate of millions to his will.
Right, again, obsession of power, not a cool thing.
He sees only two solutions. First is to kill Gen, which would be so out of his nature as to be impossible.
Yeah. There's certain people in the world that just aren't meant to be violent, and Atrus is one of them.
Plus, it would spoil his time with Catherine. Like, it would be a shadow over their relationship.
So they're falling in love in the midst of so
at Mist, like they have their first kiss at Mist, like, and stuff. So.
Aww, the first kiss in the mist.
Yeah.
Aww.
So his other solution is to trap Gen on the fifth age. It's the only one he has access to. So.
Okay, I guess so. Fair.
And he intends to leave Catherine safe on Mist. Well, he does this, but she has other ideas.
Because she's not docile like everybody's assuming her to be. Well, I'm all for a woman with agency in a story.
And so the day, like, Gen starts moving days up and stuff. So the day of the wedding, it's the day they have to do this. Because it's the only day Gen's going to be on Riven.
Yeah.
So Atrus goes to Riven. As soon as he goes to Riven, Catherine links in from Mist. She had been left on Mist. And she starts writing in the descriptive book.
For Mist?
For Riven.
For Riven.
Guided by someone that we don't see, just a hand pointing like to write.
Oh, wow.
And we see Atrus, he takes his linking book, he burns it. He goes to grab his father's book, and then he gets hit on the back of the head or something.
Whoa, okay.
During this, like before he gets on the back of the head, he hears people talking that Catherine was there smiling at Gen earlier and everything. And it's like, no, Catherine's back on Mist.
Oh.
So Atrus wakes up to Gen, who had hit him over the head. Didn't want to kill him. Just says, I don't know my own strength. I feared we had lost you.
Oh, I just wanted to incapacitate you briefly and possibly cause you brain damage. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. That's...
And we see Catherine there, dressed for the wedding.
Okay.
And both linking books, including the one that Atrus tried to burn, are sitting there on a table. And through all of this, Gen is saying, some of you have helped this person who pretends to be my son.
Whoa.
And so we're going to, like, the sky will turn black and all the ground will quake and everything. And Atrus goes, no, I fixed that. And so Gen has him untied, saying, my servant has done my bidding, and so your world will be spared.
Okay.
Basically, he's disowning him at this point.
Yeah.
And literally says the line, referring to Catherine, that she is a strong woman. I will have many sons.
Gross.
Well, here's the stupid thing.
Marital rape ain't okay, guys.
Here's the
Just gonna
thing.
say that.
Remember, Keta died giving birth to Atrus.
Oh, yeah. That's just insulting. That's... okay. It's gross.
But...
and it's just...
Before the ceremony can start, and Catherine's kind of going along with it, but before the ceremony starts, the ground starts shaking.
Ooh.
And the sky goes black, and fissures start opening up, and an eclipse is starting and everything.
Whoa. Okay.
And at one point, the table with the linking books gets knocked over, and Atrus is unbound at this point. He's not tied up anymore.
Yeah.
So he goes to try to get to the books, the linking books, because his goal is still to destroy them.
Right, exactly.
And he fights with Gen, who has this spear, it's a ceremonial spear that he grabbed, and he's fighting with Gen, and Gen kind of gets the upper hand and has him on the ground with the spear to his chest, and is literally about to, like,
Just
stab him.
Kill him, be like, you're a waste of a legacy, bye.
Literally calls him useless.
Yeah, because that's what you want to hear your dad call you. Mm-hmm.
And right when he's about to do it, Catherine yells at Gen, and she has both linking books. And she goes, let him go. And then when Gen doesn't, she drops one of the linking books into a fissure, and it just erupts in flames.
Ooh.
And so Gen's like, wait, no, we need that. Like, he's worried about his own hide.
Right, exactly. How am I going to get out of here?
And so Catherine goes, you want the linking book, you can have it. And she tosses it over the fissure. And Gen dives for it, but he can't quite make it. It falls into the fissure, too, and erupts in flames. That's all the linking books back to Kafir now.
So now he's stuck, which, of course, was not his plan.
They're still a way off of Riven. Catherine and Atrus want to get to Mist.
Right.
So they have a linking book.
Yeah, exactly.
And, he dives for the book, and he loses where Atrus is. Atrus and Catherine start running.
Yeah.
And Atrus is kind of bewildered. He has no idea what's going on. He thinks that he was betrayed. Now he's not. He's what is going on?
Everything's super confusing.
And Catherine goes that everything is going exactly as they planned. And Atrus is like, who? And Catherine says, Anna and I.
What? Excuse me?
And we'll get to that. And so, but Atrus is like, Anna, like what?
Wait, wait, there's another Anna? Because he might be thinking there's another Anna
Right.
because he's not the only Atrus in history. So
they're following this fissure that, unlike all the other ones that are glowing red with magma and stuff, this one's glowing blue, like a cold, ethereal blue.
Ooh.
And Catherine pulls the Mist linking book out from her bag and gives it to Atrus, telling him, quote, did you ever wonder what it would be like to go swimming out amongst the stars? We could go fall into the night and be cradled by stars and return to the place where we began. And then she links to Mist.
Aww.
And so Atrus is standing there holding the book, wondering what to do,
Yeah.
when Gen shows up with a large rock.
Oh my gosh. Get in that book. Get in the book. Ah.
Well, here's the thing. If he leaves the book, Gen has the book.
Oh.
So Gen's like, give me the book. But Atrus starts to understand what Catherine meant. Like, he starts thinking things over, and he goes, okay. And Atrus again starts pleading, self-serving, saying how everything was a test, and how Atrus needs him, and how he loves,
constantly covering his authoritarian fumbles. Yeah.
and how he loves Atrus. And Atrus goes, what kind of love is it that binds with ropes and locks its loved ones in a cell?
Right, exactly.
And Gen pleads, saying there is still a chance for them, which Atrus responds, no, Father. Whatever linked us once has been destroyed. You destroyed it with those books you burned. You erased it with those phrases in my book. Little by little, you destroyed it. Don't you see that? Now you have the justice you deserve. You can stay here in your little haven you create for yourself, your tiny island universe, and play God with your creations.
Yeah.
And I think it's creations like as Gen sees them, not as Atrus sees them.
Yeah, of course, because Gen's thinking of it almost like a herd of slaves, essentially.
Right. And with that, Atrus takes a step back over the edge of the fissure, this dark blue fissure, and falls into the darkness, into a great ocean of stars, and links to mist.
Ah.
So the book is now falling into space.
Which may explain why years later.
Right. And then we're going to finish with Atrus's journal.
Okay.
Atrus keeps a journal. Everybody in the Mist series seems to keep a journal.
Well, yeah, I mean that was definitely a lot more prevalent before social media because there was.
Well, I think it's also writers.
Yeah, writers do that a lot.
So we're going to finish with quotes from Atrus's journal here. Quote, only a remarkable woman would have done what Anna did, following us down through the labyrinth of tunnels and broken ways into Dunny. She had known, of course, that Gen would not keep his word. Had known what I, in my innocence, could not have guessed, that my father was not merely untrustworthy, but mad. All those years I spent in Kavir, she had kept a distant eye on me, making sure I came to no harm at my father's hands, while she awaited my moment of realization. Anna saw me flee Kavir, and sought to find me in the tunnels once again, but Gen had got there first. Even then, she would have intervened, but for the mute. Regis was particularly strong.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Seeing them carrying me back, unconscious to Kavir, she had known she had to act. That evening she had gone to Kavir and, risking all, had entered my father's study, meaning to confront him. But Gen was not there. It was Catherine she met. Catherine who, after that first moment of shock and surprise, had chosen to trust and help her.
Wow. Well, yeah, because Catherine has nothing to lose at this point, really.
I should have known at once that Mist was not Catherine's, but how was I to know otherwise? I had thought Anna lost forever.
Oh, yeah, and he didn't even know that Anna knew the art.
Right. And how is it to know that just as I made my preparations, so the two of them made theirs, pooling their talents, Anna's experience and Catherine's intuitive genius, to craft those seemingly cataclysmic events on age 5 in such a way that after a time they would reverse themselves, making Catherine's former home, now Gen's prison, stable once more.
Wow.
And I'm going to do this line, and I hate that I'm doing it because this is such a famous line. I realized the moment I fell into the fissure that the book would not be destroyed as I had planned. It continued falling into that starry expanse of which I had only a fleeting glimpse. I have tried to speculate where it might have landed, but I must admit that such conjecture is futile. Still, questions about whose hands might one day hold my Mist book are unsettling to me. I know my apprehensions might never be allayed, and so I close, realizing that perhaps the ending has not yet been written.
Very nice. Very clever.
And that's the end of the Book of Atrus.
And because, essentially, afterwards, you have an idea of what happens next if you've played Mist.
Right. Some years later, but yeah.
Some, like 20.
Yeah.
20-something,
and
30-something
that
almost.
Ending paragraph is the first paragraph you hear when you start up Mist.
Yeah, I remember that specifically. That is so... That's a very... I like that ending. It is very clever. Yeah. Clever and kind of unexpected, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So, which explains why when we did the last... For patrons, we did the last live stream. That we went to that area where they could keep an eye on Riven.
We went to Rhyme, yes, where you see a single shot of Riven.
The reason they're keeping an eye on Riven is because Gen is there.
Yes.
And they know how Gen is. Okay.
Now, if you remember, back in episode 1 or 2, I mentioned that Catherine was stuck on Riven.
Oh.
She got fooled to going back.
Oh, no. Well, I mean, that's where her family is. So
yeah.
She got fooled to going back.
By her sons, yeah.
Her sons.
And she's stuck there. That is why the second game is Riven, which you'll be starting next week.
Okay.
We won't be doing the story of Riven, but you'll be playing an hour or so of Riven.
So wait a second. And then talking about Riven and talking about, the personality of Gen and comparing it to Cirrus and Achenar.
Mm-hmm.
Did Gen know his grandchildren?
No.
So we're just gonna.
No, he never knows.
Because it's very interesting that it's almost like the power hunger specifically for Cirrus.
I think that Cirrus and Achenar both know what happened. I don't think they know Gen. I don't think they travel to Riven at all because it would be too dangerous.
Right.
Because then Gen would have a way back.
Right.
And I don't know what possessed. I have to look back again. I don't remember what possessed Catherine to go back to Riven. It was some tricked into going there, just as Atrus was tricked into going back to Kavir.
Right. So they probably have heard of stories of these places and then used that against them. Because Cirrus and Achenar never knew the art. They just knew of the worlds that they liked to lord over, per se. But especially Cirrus, seemed to have this. They both had fascinations with power.
Right.
And Atrus and Catherine weren't going to teach him that. So it's almost kind of like it was genetically instilled, which just seems like such a weird.
I think it's just that power, that power can be corrupting. Regardless, I think because Atrus also has that moment where he's like, "I am your god." To be fair, it's
right. He does it that one time with the whiteness, whatever it is. Yeah.
So he kind of dabbles in it, but he doesn't like it.
No.
And I think that's Anna's influence, but I don't know how much of that influence. I know that Anna is alive when the boys are. They do know their grandmother.
Wait, and their great-grandmother.
Yes, great-grandmother.
Yes.
Sorry. I don't know if they know anything about Gen. They probably know of him.
There's no way they didn't tell the story of Gen. But it's almost such a sad story that Atrus worked really hard with Catherine to make a world where they could feel safe and they could escape.
Mm-hmm.
And
they end up being the same way.
And they end up raising sons that end up being the same way. I don't know, considering how they probably were the kind of people who would want to raise compassionate children.
When you're dealing with something like the art, I think how do you balance that? You know?
It's almost like it's almost like raising royalty.
Yeah.
How do you teach them it's more about responsibility than it is about power? And that's and it's going to be different for each personality too. So
also Cirrus was non-canonically, I don't know if the black ships are canonical or not, but he got his taste of totalitarian power and stuff from the black ships in Mechanical Age.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's the Book of Atrus.
Woo! That was that was stressful, but it was a good story. It's a good story. It's a very good story. 2
other books that we'll cover eventually.
So you already mentioned the Book of Tiana.
The Book of Tiana. Then there's the Book of Dunny.
Oh.
There's a 4th book that's been in perpetual development hell for years called the Book of Miram.
That's so George R.R. Martin of them.
Well, I think part of it is maybe it was started when they were still under, dealing with Disney.
Right, exactly.
And since then it kind of fell off, or they don't know what to do with it, maybe. It's a lot to write a book.
Somebody needs to make that island it would be so popular. I mean, once we're past the pandemic, it would be so popular. I just
want them to make a really good VR version of Myst with that island that we saw. That fan made one.
Oh, yeah. If you guys are following us on Twitter, which is @LoreTogether, we shared this really great fan art that we had. We kind of put some eyes on it with Cyan Worlds looking at that map. So
we forgot about that at the beginning doing our whole social media and Patreon thing. So
let's do it now. Yeah.
We already did Twitter.
So Twitter's @LoreTogether.
And our email is loretogether@gmail.com if you want to contact us there.
Yeah.
On Reddit, you can find me, usually, at the username LoreTogetherPod. And then on Patreon, we are, if you like this episode and you like this series and you want to help us do more of them and get some special features like early releases, the live streams each week or every other week.
And I'm thinking of, as time goes on, I'm thinking of bonus episodes because
we're going to do some bonus episodes. I have an idea for one too.
Yeah.
That will be patreon.com/LoreTogether.
Yeah. So please connect with us, and we love connecting with you guys and talking.
Also,
with you guys.
please rate us wherever you can.
Yeah, that's the one thing we're bad about asking is now that we're now in the double digits. Obviously, we like doing this. We're not going to stop doing this. The big secret is we're going to have a baby in the summer, but we're going to try to do this while we still have a baby. So wish us luck.
Editing will be fun around crying, I'm sure.
We'll have to take turns cuddling the child but rate us so that way more people can see where we are, because right now the only thing that we've been doing is just promoting on Twitter. But if you
and Reddit, yeah.
But if you give us a review on whether it's iTunes or Stitcher or
does Spotify do ratings? I don't know.
I don't think Spotify does ratings, but
either way, please rate us wherever you can and spread the word.
Spread the word. Let everybody know, because we actually, to be honest, regardless if you're able to support us on Patreon or not, we love knowing that you guys love hearing about these stories that we love to talk about. I mean, these are some of our favorite stories, and Mystic has so many games that he wants to do. In fact, what are you planning to do next, honey? And
maybe we can let you take a swing at some lore.
Sure, I might not do my first idea I was thinking of, but I'll do something related to it. Anyway, so that's Lore Together.
Thank you guys for listening.
Yeah, thanks so much for listening. We love you all. Stay safe, stay awesome over there, and we'll see you at the next episode.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.